Hello board game brothers and sisters, I'm Adam Singer and welcome to another episode where I'll be letting you know of all the board games launching on Kickstarter and GameFound over the next week. If you're new to the channel, I don't always look this good, but it is Halloween, so we do like to switch it up a bit. I am going for a 1920s jazz musician. Maybe that's a little too niche for Halloween, but it's an excuse to carry around a guitar, so I like it. But also, if you are new here, we do these videos every single week, so if you do want to stay up to date with crowdfunded board games, but then also get a good overview of all the different games that are launching so you have a good idea of which ones you want to back, this is definitely a channel that you want to subscribe to, and you can subscribe down below if you like the content. I do normally like to start these videos by going over some news and discoveries that I just found out about over the past week, but I don't really have anything new to let you know of, other than I do want to mention a couple things. And the first one is that I am now sharing my list of games with Mike over at Zilla Blitz. And if you're not familiar with Mike and his channel, he specializes in wargames and he keeps track of way more wargames than I do. And he also goes into a lot more detail on the wargames because in general, I do mention the wargames on my channel and I do let you know if they are launching, but there are a lot of other wargames outside of Kickstarter and GameFound that are also crowdfunded. But I know Zilla Blitz knows a lot more about this stuff than I do, and he can give you better coverage than I can. So that's why I'm sharing my list with him, so that he has his own sources, but then also he can cross-check with anything that I found to put together the best list of wargames as possible. And then he's going to be putting out a video at the start of each month letting you know of some of the war games to come. So if you are interested in war themed games, you'll definitely want to check out his channel and also stay tuned for that video. He's planning to post the video on Sunday, so if you are watching this late enough, it might already be up, but I don't have a direct link to it right now, so I'll just leave a link to his channel in the description below, and you can subscribe to him if it hasn't been posted yet. But otherwise, if you do want to check it out, I'm sure he'd love to hear any feedback. As always, I do like to give a quick shout out to Alex over at Board Game Co. as well, because he provides a ton of great content digging into all the details in these crowdfunded games, and he goes over more of those heavy hitters that probably most of you are very interested in. So if you want to get reviews and playthroughs and just general thoughts on these different games, he's definitely someone that you'll want to follow. And he does also post a monthly roundup going over most of those heavy hitters that are going to be launching for the course of the month, and he posts that at the start of each month. And we are getting near the start of November, so you can expect that video to go up very, very soon. And that's pretty much it for an intro. We do got a few games to cover, so let's check them out. And the first campaign we have launches on October 31st, and this one's called Demoniac, and this plays 2 to 4 players and takes about 20 to 60 minutes to play. And in this game, players are essentially demons trying to be the first to take possession over their victim. Players are not only going up against each other, but there's also going to be an exorcist that is run by the game that's going to be getting in the player's way. There's a whole bunch of different exorcists that can be included in a game, but players are only going to be choosing one, which creates a lot of variety from game to game because each of those exorcists will behave a little bit differently. But then each exorcist will have 5 weaknesses that players will be trying to uncover as the game moves forward, and those are also randomized because there's a whole pool of weakness cards and you're only going to be using 5 in a single game. Also, each player is going to be having their own unique victim that they're trying to take possession of. They're going to have their own unique stats for body and mind, and this is what players are going to be trying to overcome in order to take full possession over their victim. But to win the game, you're not only trying to take possession over your victim, but you also have to defeat the exorcist, and then you also have to roll 6 pentagons. And the way that the players accomplish all this is by taking turns performing actions. You can take 3 actions on your turn, and one of those actions can be to play a card from your hand. And there's a couple different types of cards that you can have. The first one is the disturbance cards, which just essentially act like a special ability that you can use to help yourself, hinder your opponents, or even hinder the exorcist. But then the more important ones are the possession cards, and these come in both body and mind. And like I said, each of your victims will have a stat for body and mind, and you're going to have to play enough cards of that type in order to overcome those stats. But these cards can also have special effects or icons on them that you'll be matching with the weaknesses of the exorcist in order to deal damage to that exorcist. But like I said, the weaknesses of the exorcist are not revealed at the start of the game, so the cards that you do play onto the table might change as more of this information becomes revealed. But as always, you will want to make sure that you're maintaining that ratio of body and mind cards so that you don't lose possession over your victim. But the actions aren't only used for playing cards, because players can also use an action to roll or re-roll the attack dice. And the reason that a player might want to do this is because this is how you reveal the Exorcist's weaknesses. You're going to be rolling dice equal to the number of possession cards that you currently have on your victim, and then you're going to be trying to get as many pentagons as possible in order to reveal one of the weakness cards. The nice thing about doing this is that anytime a player reveals the Exorcist's weakness, not only do you have more information, but it's also going to trigger a divine attack on all the other players. This is always good for you, but you do need to worry about rolling the crosses, because this is what's going to trigger the Exorcist abilities, which can affect you as well. The game continues like this, with players playing those cards to possess their victim, rolling those dice to reveal the Exorcist's weaknesses, and then also trying to play the right icons on their cards in order to inflict damage on that Exorcist. Once the Exorcist is defeated, the first player who has possessed their victim but then also rolls 6 pentagons is going to be the winner of the game. And if this one does sound interesting to you, I will have it linked in the description below. Also launching on the 31st, we have Wild Duo, and this plays 2 players and takes about 5 to 30 minutes to play. And this one is actually a box of 5 different animal-themed games. Each of these games is going to be focusing on a different type of animal, but each of these games are also strategy games. The first game offered in this box is called Tusk Tactics, and in this game the board's going to be set up with 2 different elephant families, with each player controlling one of those 2 colors, but the whole goal here is to split off your herd into as many stacks of elephants as possible, with your color elephant being on the top of the stack. The way the game works is that players are going to be taking turns moving one of their tokens or stacks in a straight line, so that they always end their movement on top of another stack or token. Catch here is that the movement of your token or stack is equal to the height of it. So if you only have 1 token there, you can only move 1 space, but if you have 2, you can move 2 spaces, and so on and so forth. If you can't end any of your movements on top of another stack, then you can't make that movement, and the end of the game is triggered once there's no more valid movements to make. The player with the most stacks with their elephant on the top wins the game. The next game is called Baleen Bubbles, and I think this one is the one that I'm most interested out of the lot, because in this one each player is going to be playing as their own team of whales, and each player is going to have their own school of fish that they're trying to get into the center of the board first. The thing that makes this one interesting is that once you move one of your tokens in any direction that you want, it has to continue moving in that direction until it either hits the end of the board or until it hits another token. This means that players are going to be using their movements to slide both their whales as well as their fish tokens into new locations on the board, taking advantage of the tokens that have already been played there. On a player's turn, they can move any one of their tokens, including their fish token, and they can also move in any direction, including diagonally. The game just continues like this, with players taking turns making movements until one of the players is able to get their fish token into the center of the board, and then that player wins the game. The next game being offered is called Sealed Shores, and in this one you're going to have the board pre-set up with 2 different teams of sea lions, and then the goal of this one is to be the first player to fully surround one of your opponent's sea lions so that they're not able to move. On a turn, players must move a sea lion at least 1 space, and you can move any distance that you want, but you are blocked by other sea lions, including your own. Something that's interesting about this one is that you can move your sea lions on any of the lines outlined on the board, and although there is a main grid in the center of the board, along the edges this can actually allow you to circle around the island or even do a complete loop around the board. The first player to block in one of their opponent's sea lions wins the game. And the next game here is called Monkey Monarchs, and this is actually another one that I think looks super interesting. I'm not sure if I'd prefer this one or the whale one, but this one is definitely a contender. Because in this one, each player is going to be controlling their own team of monkeys, and you're going to have your male monkeys, your female monkeys, and your alpha male. And each player is going to be trying to either get their alpha male to the starting location of their opponent's alpha male first, or be the first to eliminate their opponent's monkeys. The way that you do all this is by just moving one of your monkeys 1 space on your turn. What's really cool is the way that these monkeys attack, because anytime that you're able to get 2 monkeys surrounding one of your opponent's monkeys, that monkey will be eliminated from the game. But even cooler is that it's not limited to just 1 monkey. If you're able to surround 2 or even 3 of your opponent's monkeys in a row, then you'll eliminate all of those monkeys. But there is a catch here, because your female monkeys won't work with your female monkeys and your male monkeys won't work with your male monkeys, but any other combination will work, like having a male and a female, or having a male or a female paired with your alpha monkey. The first player to eliminate their player's monkeys or get their alpha male into their opponent's alpha male starting position wins the game. And the last game included in this box is called Manakin Mates, and this is a game where each player is going to be controlling their own group of birds, and players are competing to be the first to connect 4 of their birds in any direction out on the board. On a turn, players will either be able to place a bird token anywhere out on the board, or instead they can move one of their bird tokens. The cool thing here is that you normally only get to move a bird token one space, but if the bird token is moving across a space that matches the color of that token, then you can actually move any distance that you want. And another really cool thing here is that each of these tokens are actually double-sided, with each side representing one of the 2 players. And if you're ever able to move your bird tokens so that they fully surround any amount of your opponent's bird tokens, as long as they're all in a connected single row, then you actually get to flip all your opponent's tokens to your side. This is very similar to the mechanism in the monkey game I just explained, but rather than eliminating those tokens, you're flipping them to your color, which could mean you winning the game if you're able to use that to get that 4th or even 3rd and 4th token into a row of your tokens. Some really unique and fun looking strategy games here, and they all feature some really nice artwork and themes, so if this one does look interesting to you, you can definitely check it out. I'll have it linked in the description below. Also launching on the 31st, we have Moolah Madness. This plays 2 to 6 players and takes just 20 minutes to play, and this one is a lightweight party game where players are competing to collect the most moolah by the end of the game. The way the game plays is that every round players are going to be drawing a card from the shared deck. You'd either draw an event card, and when that happens you're just going to be pausing and resolving the effects of the card. And these can have all sorts of game-changing effects, but if you drew any other card, then you're going to be using that to perform some sort of action. And when you do draw that card, you can choose to play it immediately, or you can play another card from your hand. These cards can do all sorts of things like add money into your own stash, but they can also be used to affect the other player's stash or even protect yourself if another player targets you. The game continues like this until the draw pile is completely empty, and then the player with the most moolah in their stash at the end of the game wins the game. And also on the 31st, we have Saw the Jigsaw Trials, and this plays 2 to 6 players and takes about 30 to 90 minutes to play. And this one is also my own personal pick of the week because I think this one has some really interesting mechanisms, and it does have a bit of push your luck, which is one of my favorite mechanisms, and it also does something really cool that I haven't really seen done this well in a board game ever before, and I will let you know what that is in a second. And yes, this one is based on the Saw franchise, so yes, this one is a little sick and twisted. And if you're not familiar with the franchise, it's essentially a series of movies with the general plot along the lines of a bunch of people waking up trapped in some sort of room or in some situation, and the person that put them in that situation is essentially running them through all sorts of really twisted games and trials in order to give them the opportunity to escape. Usually this involves some sort of trade-off like dying or losing a limb. The way that this game incorporates all that is that players are actually going to be the victims of those games, but they are also candidates to take over as the role of Jigsaw. But of course, in order to do that, you need to prove to Jigsaw that you can create the most destructive and creative traps, but then you also do need to survive. Because each player is actually going to be creating traps and then putting the other players through their own trials, seeing how they fare and seeing how many limbs they might lose. Each character does have their own set of stats that might allow them to perform a little bit better depending on the type of trap that they're going up against, but essentially anytime that a player is presented with a trap, they have 2 options. They can either take a set amount of damage to a certain part of their body, or instead they can try and challenge that trap and try to deconstruct it or work around it in order to escape with little or no damage. Of course, it could also go horribly wrong and you'll still trigger the trap and inflict additional damage on yourself, so that's where the push your luck comes into play. Health in this game is tracked by the amount of blood that you have left in your body, and some of these traps can just cause direct damage to that health by causing you to bleed in various ways, while other traps can cause you to take damage to your limbs. And this might sound better because you're not losing blood immediately, but if you take too much damage to your limbs, you can end up losing them completely, which is going to cause you to bleed out every single turn. But every single turn, players are also going to be drawing cards into their hand, and there's a bunch of different types of cards that you can get. There are different types of tools that come with different stat values that you can add to your stats to help you deconstruct traps that might be presented to you. But then there are also cards that allow you to build those traps. And the really cool thing here is there's actually 3 different types of trap cards. There's mechanism cards, object cards, and escape cards. And you're always going to be combining 3 of these together in order to create a unique trap. And there's over 2,000 different types of traps that you can create in this game. But what's really cool about this is the way that they chain together, because each of them has 3 lines on them. But once you place all these 3 cards together, you're going to be reading this entire paragraph left to right like you would normally read a book, and it's going to be telling you something completely different depending on the 3 trap cards that you put together. And this is that cool mechanism that I described before, and I know that this is mostly thematic, but this definitely adds to the game, and it definitely adds to the immersion and the theme. This is just a really cool bonus here because chaining these cards together does have gameplay implications as well, but the fact that they're able to marry that so well with the theme and to create this cool mechanism where the words all come together to form a unique description of a trap is just definitely something worth mentioning, and I think it does add more fun to the game. Like I said, there are those gameplay implications, and the cards that you piece together are going to determine the options that are presented to your victim. There's going to be the set amount of damage and to what body part if they decide to just try and tank the damage. But then there's also the stats that the player must overcome if they are to be able to disarm that trap. Cool thing here is that the stat icon and the value of the stat are both located on 2 different cards, which gives you a lot of flexibility with deciding what type of stat that you want to have, but then also the value of whatever stat you chose. And this is where that push your luck comes into play for your victim, because if they want to try and disarm your trap, then they're going to be trying to get enough stats to get higher than the values on that trap. Of course, this is a game that has a hand limit, so you only have so many cards at your disposal, and then your starting stats are normally never going to be enough to meet the requirements of these stats. This means that you're going to need a little bit of extra help or luck, and the way that this comes into play is that each of these traps does have a value on it, indicating how many extra cards you will be able to draw if you choose to try and disarm that trap. This means that if you're close to having enough stats, you might want to push your luck, because there's always a chance you could get those missing stats from the cards that you draw from the deck. But if that doesn't happen and you don't meet the stat requirements, then you're going to be taking damage to the difference, which could end up being more damage than if you just chose the other option to begin with. There's also a few other cards that have some varying effects and abilities that players can gain throughout the game, but in order to actually put one of their traps into play, they do need to also play the Billy card with that trap, and then select a player and tell them that they want to play a game. The Billy card is a special one because not only does it allow you to put those traps into play, but you can also spend it to temporarily increase any of your stats by 3 if you ever find yourself going up against a trap and you absolutely need those stats. The game continues like this until there's just one surviving player left, and then that player wins the game. And if this one sounds interesting to you, you can check it out. I'll have it linked in the description below. Also launching on the 31st, we have Cargo Empire, and this plays 1 to 5 players and takes about 60 to 90 minutes to play. And this is a competitive pick up and deliver game where players are going to be trying to move cubes from their trading posts to other locations out on the board. And in order to do that, they're going to be spending different transport cards. These will allow you to transport those cubes over land, air, and sea. And you're going to have to spend one of those for each of the nodes that you're going to be crossing over. But at the start of the game, there's going to be some random city tiles put out on the board. And anytime that you start or end your movement on those cities, you're actually going to get an additional movement completely for free. Players are going to be taking turns choosing a cube from a location where they currently have a trading post, and then they're going to be moving it to another city that requires that cube. There's going to be multiple routes to get that cube to that location, so the player is going to want to choose the one that is within the means of their transport cards. Another nice thing about using those transport cards is that there's going to be a few different tracks, with each track being associated with one type of transport, and every time that you use one of those cards, it's going to be moving you up that track, granting you different bonuses like additional transport cards, different objective cards that will get you additional victory points if you're able to fulfill the requirements, or even city cards that work similar to those global city cards that were set up at the start of the game, but these ones are only going to allow additional movement to you. But whenever you do successfully transport a cube to a new location out on the board, you do get to put one of your trading posts there for free, which does extend your network and make accessing other areas of the board a little bit easier. Each of those city tiles are also double-sided, and once enough trading posts have been established there, it's actually going to flip to the other side, presenting some new options to the players. The game continues like this, and then at the end of the game, the player with the most victory points from their objectives, the different city cards that they were able to acquire, the trading posts that they built, as well as their cubes delivered, is going to be the one to win the game. And if you are interested in this one, you can find links to the campaign in the description below. And now for games launching on November 1st, we have WarBonds Battle of Vitoria, and this plays 2 to 5 players and takes about 60 to 180 minutes to play. And I know at the start of this video, I said that I'm not normally interested in wargames, but this one actually looks very, very interesting, and I already did make a game my pick of the week, and that one is probably more of my own personal interest pick of the week, but I think this one definitely deserves a pick of the week as well. And if you are interested in wargames, I do recommend checking this one out because I think it has a lot of really cool ideas that does make it stand apart from a lot of other games in the genre. And the first thing I want to mention on that regard is that this is a game that has a concept of loyalty and a concept of leadership. Each player is going to have their own individual warlord, which is the main way that you influence your leadership in this game. And the leadership just basically determines if your units are actually going to obey you. And you can recruit a whole wide array of different units in this game, and they all have different stats, abilities, alignments, keywords, and damage, and all of these can all come into play when determining how loyal they're going to be to you. And like I said, there are different things that you can do with your warlord and your leadership in order to increase loyalty amongst your units. But the cool thing here is that loyalty does act like a bit of a resource as well, because you can actually spend it to perform special abilities for your units. And this is a game that gives a lot of character to your units as well, because like I said, they are very different. They have different alignments and keywords and all sorts of things. And this also means that they're going to gain and lose loyalty for different situations. So depending on what your leader does, or depending on the situations that you put those specific units into, that's going to determine how much they want to continue to follow you. Some units might want to be more honorable, while others might want to be more evil. And another thing that you might really like about this game is that there is absolutely no randomness in this game, because each of your units doesn't roll dice in order to attack. They just do a set amount of damage, but they also have a certain amount of attacks per turn. This is really cool because it creates multiple pivot points when it comes to increasing the damage that your character might do, because if you're combining different abilities together or using different items or special effects, those different options might be more beneficial to you than the other, depending if you have a special effect that triggers when you get over a single hit of a certain amount of damage, or if you get a certain bonus every time you issue an attack. But the variability of these units still doesn't stop there, because each of the units that you can recruit does also have their own initiative value, and that's going to determine where they go on the initiative track, because each of these are going to have an associated token with them that's going to represent their turn order relative to the other units out on the board. So this isn't really a game where players alternate turns. Instead, the units are going to be activated in the order that is determined by the initiative board. And I think it's a pretty cool fact that I actually really like this mechanism, because normally those actions that allow you to increase your position in turn order, I tend to find very boring in games. But the way that it's done in this game is that it's just a stat that's associated with your unit, and it's just something to consider when you are deciding which units to recruit. This means that's adding a whole other layer of decision making onto the puzzle of which units you want to recruit into your army, without adding a whole lot of overhead and without requiring you to spend a turn or actions in order to increase your player order. And I just think that's so cool, but there's still so much more offered by this game, and I don't think I can do it justice in the few minutes that I'm going to be talking about it in this video. But there is another unit that players are going to have access to called their camp, and this actually behaves just like a unit. It does have the ability to attack and defend itself, but it also has the ability to recruit new units, heal your units, resupply them, and it can even be upgraded with war tokens that you're going to be earning throughout the game. The camp is also very important because it does play into one of the possible win conditions, because this is a game that offers multiple paths to victory. You can either be the last surviving warlord out on the board, have a fully leveled up war camp, or have the largest army when the game does come to its own end. The game also looks easy to set up and get going here, with the main board having some pre-printed terrain, but then also having some tiles that are going to be randomly placed out at the beginning of the game, making the board a little bit different from game to game. But there is one more really important thing to know about the main board, and that's that combat is not only limited to this board. And the reason for that is because some of your units can actually fly. So along with the main board, you can kind of imagine that there is another plane of battle where units are actually going to be flying around, attacking each other and attacking the units below. This is going to allow those units to play a little bit differently, with some different pros and cons and different strategies that you might want to employ. The game then plays just like I said, according to that initiative track, with players taking advantage of their different units and performing their different actions and abilities. I'm really impressed with what I'm seeing with this game, and even though I'm not normally into this genre of game, this one is getting my attention, and I will be following along with it and checking out what it has to offer and checking any reviews and playthroughs that happen to get posted during the campaign. And if this one looks interesting to you and you want to check it out as well, I will have links in the description below. Also on the first, we have Golen Bay, and this plays 2 to 4 players. It takes about 15 minutes to play. And this is a competitive game where one side of the board is going to be competing against the other side of the board. If you are playing 2 players, you're just going to be having a 1v1. Otherwise, the players are going to be on teams. But the goal of this game is to open your opponent's 5 treasure chests before they open yours. The main board features a hex grid with a bomb token that's going to be starting in the center of the board. Each of the players' individual chests are going to be located on the far ends of the board, with one side belonging to one player and the other side belonging to the other. Players do start the game with a hand of cards, and there's 2 different types of cards in the game. There are your bomb cards, which allow you to roll that die and then move the bomb that many movement points. Then there are also cards that allow you to react to different effects or actions that might occur in the game. These can allow you to tip the scales in all sorts of different ways and can be really helpful, especially if the opponent is about to open one of your chests, because you can sometimes use these to defend yourself. But like I said, if the bomb is ever on a chest at the end of a turn, then that chest is going to be opened, making the other player one more step closer to winning the game, because once a player has completely opened all 5 of their opponent's chests, then they win the game. And if this one does sound interesting to you, I will have links to the campaign in the description below, and of course you can click to get notified. Also on the first, we have Beards and Booty, and this plays 2 to 4 players and takes about 10 to 30 minutes to play. And this one is a lightweight game of dice rolling where each player is going to have an asymmetric character, each with a sheet providing different combinations of dice that can reward you with different outcomes. These outcomes essentially allow you to boost your reputation or harm opponents, or instead could gain you gold that you can spend to perform some special actions. Players are going to be rolling a pool of dice on their turn, re-rolling any of the dice that they like up to 3 times in order to spend those to activate the various actions on their sheet. Like I said, players can also use any gold that they have to perform additional actions on their turn for various benefits. Then the last player standing with any reputation is the one that wins the game, because this is a game that's a lot easier to lose reputation than it is to gain it. And if you are interested, I will have a link to the campaign in the description below. And launching on November 3rd, we have Innkeeper, and this plays 2 to 4 players and takes about 30 to 60 minutes to play. And this is a game where players are going to be playing as innkeepers, aggressively trying to make as much money as possible. Players are going to be taking advantage of any opportunities to attract customers to their inn, regardless of how questionable it might be. Players are going to have their own asymmetrical inn with its own set of stats, and the stats are going to determine what type of customers you're going to be attracting to your inn. The game plays over 4 rounds, where at the start of each round, all players are going to be drawing treachery cards, which are basically cards that allow you to harm your opponents and help yourself. But aside from those cards, players will also have bid cards, and after all those treachery cards have been drawn, players are going to be bidding for various assets that are going to be revealed out on the table. These assets are going to be different additions to your inn, allowing you to increase your stats in various ways. Players all have 5 bid cards ranging from values 1 to 5, and you're allowed to play as many or little of those cards as you want. But one thing to note with the bidding is that anything that you do win, you do have to pay for it, so you can only bid up to the amount of gold that you currently have in your supply. Players assign any of the bid cards that they want to any of the assets that are available, and then everyone simultaneously reveals to see who gains which asset. After that, you're going to be revealing customer cards one by one, and they're going to be visiting the bar that best fits their stats based on the stats that your bar has. And of course, the different assets that you bought are going to be modifying your stats in various ways. Players will then gain an amount of income depending on the customers that they're able to serve. And then that will trigger the end of the round. But a really neat thing here is that players actually gain interest on the gold that they're able to accumulate. And at the start of each round, you're going to be gaining an additional gold for every 5 gold you have. The game continues like this, but don't forget that players also have those treachery cards that they can use to tip the scales in their favor at any moment. But the player with the most victory points at the end of 4 rounds wins the game. And if you're interested in this one, you can check it out. I'll have it linked in the description below. And that's everything I have for you this week, but don't leave yet because we still have a few awesome pledge giveaways to announce. And these are the easiest giveaways to enter ever. All you gotta do is leave a comment down below. You don't have to like or subscribe or do anything like that. And the first giveaway we have is for a pledge for My Favorite Things and the String Railway Collection. And this giveaway is gonna be for a pledge for both of these games, but I'll go over My Favorite Things first because this one is a really interesting trick-taking game where the players don't really know the value of their cards. Because in this game, the players actually create the cards. Each player is going to be asking their neighbor to list 5 of their favorite things in a particular category, but then also they're going to have to list 1 of their least favorite things, and then they're going to be writing those on cards and then giving those back to the player that asked. Those cards are then going to be used to try and win tricks, but the value of those cards is determined by where it ranks relative to those other cards. If you know your opponent's tastes, that might make determining this a little bit easier, but you do get a little bit more information every time you play a trick because you get to see how your card performed relative to how you thought it would perform. The String Railway Collection is actually a set of 2 different games, so you're actually getting 3 games as part of this pledge. But the main one is, of course, String Railway, where players are going to be putting out a bunch of different strings in order to connect different stations, which will earn them victory points depending on the stations that they connect to. Anytime that it's your turn, you're going to be drawing a station and then putting it anywhere on the board, but then you're also going to be able to place 1 of your 5 strings. You always have to place your string connected to one of your previous stations, then it always needs to be connected to a new station. In general, players will be losing points anytime their string crosses over another string, but there are some other stations that break this rule if you're able to connect to them. Players will be doing all of this to try and gain the most victory points to win the game, but like I said, there are 2 games in this box, and the other game plays quite a bit differently than this, but it does get set up with the same sort of concepts because there's going to be a predetermined railway set up using strings and stations, but then instead players are going to be upgrading their own individual train engines and then using those to deliver cubes to other locations that require those cubes. This one is more focused on pickup and deliver, while String Railway is more focused on the route building. Really popular games here with a lot of positive reviews associated with them, so I'm super jealous of whoever wins this game, but like I said, this is for a pledge for both the games. And like I said, all you gotta do is leave a comment down below and just make sure you leave the hashtag favorite in the comment and make sure to spell it with the U like they do on the cover of this box. And you can leave a comment saying anything you want, but if you're looking for something in particular, maybe you could let us know of what one of your favorite things is. I guess for myself, it's kind of good timing that it's Halloween this week because Halloween is actually my favorite holiday, even though it's not a real holiday. It's just definitely the most fun with all the dressing up and spooking people and still having some decent weather outside. Not to mention in Canada, we get some pretty spectacular fall colors. But the next giveaway we have is for a pledge for DreamEscape, and this one is actually a solo choose your own adventure game. But this one is really cool because this one all takes place in a H.P. Lovecraftian style dream. Players are trying to escape the dream by finding a certain amount of portals, but in order to do that, you're going to be going through multiple dream worlds in order to find those. The cool thing here is that one dream is not limited to one location in this game. You can actually include all the different locations and you'll be jumping between whichever ones you want within that particular game. Your character is going to have a bunch of different stats and skills that can help with different skill checks, but something that I think is really cool about this game is that anytime that you encounter a card and try and do that challenge, it's going to go into your memory bank. And at certain points in the game, you might have the option to relive a card from your memory, which means that if that card didn't go the way you wanted, or if you went down a path that you didn't want to go, or if you just failed the skill check, you don't actually have to reset that game and start all over in order to experience that card a second time. This is a concept that I would love to see in more choose your own adventure games because there's so many choose your own adventure games out there where you end up taking a wrong turn and it costs you the game, or there's just not a lot of information of the impact your decisions might make if you go a certain direction. And this one does allow you to kind of go back on that and try another path if it didn't turn out the way that you'd hoped. But this giveaway is going to be for a copy of the game, and all you gotta do to enter this giveaway is leave a comment down below with the hashtag dream, and you can say whatever you want, but if you're looking for something in particular, I mean, it is Halloween and I could ask you to tell me your worst nightmares, but I don't want to dig up any trauma here, so let's just go with you can let us know what you think is the most scariest H.P. Lovecraft creature. Like I said, you can leave any comment that you want, so don't feel like you have to answer this if you're not super familiar with H.P. Lovecraft and the different monsters in his stories. But for myself, I've actually read quite a few of his works, and the one that I thought was the spookiest and the one that I would recommend is called A Color from Out of Space. The monster in it is really unique as well, and it's not so much the monster that's scary, but the effect that it has. It's just a crazy, interesting, cool story. But I'm going to switch things up for these next two giveaways and run these ones over on the Discord, and it's still super easy to enter these giveaways if you're interested. All you got to do is check out our Discord, which I'll have linked in the description below. Head over to the giveaways channel and then click the little emoji underneath the giveaway, and that'll get you entered into that giveaway, which will be automatically drawn at the end of next week. And this giveaway is going to be for a pledge for the Morrison Game Factory, which is a escape room style game where players are going to be using the discoveries of an adventurer that discovered this abandoned factory, uncovering a mystery that the players are going to continue to unravel. This one is a more lightweight entry-level style of escape room game, so if you haven't experienced it before, this is a great option, but it'll still be fun for people that are fans of the genre. It's going to include all sorts of different tools and gadgets that players will be using to solve various puzzles, and players will be playing through that narrative, solving different puzzles until they fully uncover the mystery. Like I said, all you got to do to enter this one is check out the Discord and click that little emoji under the giveaway. And the last giveaway we have is for a pledge for DeckHand, and this one is a pirate-themed deck building game. In this game, each player is going to be starting with a starting deck, but then you're going to be using those cards to perform various actions, to draw more cards into your hand, discard cards, gain gold, or gain new cards into your draw deck. Each of these cards can have a bunch of different actions and chaining effects, but some of them can even have these hooks located in the bottom left corner of the card, and those are victory points earned to you if you still have that card at the end of the game. So players will be trying to take advantage of the abilities of these cards in order to accumulate the most victory points as possible, because once the draw deck is completely depleted, the end of the game is triggered, and then the player with the most victory points in their deck wins the game. And I do want to mention that I did miss covering this one when it originally launched. It does happen sometimes. There's so many games and a few of them do slip through the cracks. But the creators still want to go ahead with the giveaway even though I wasn't able to provide previous coverage, so I just want to thank them for that. And if you do want to check out this campaign, I will have it linked in the description below, but I'll also have it linked over on the Discord where I'll be running the giveaway. So just check out the giveaways channel just like the previous one, click the little emoji underneath that giveaway, and that'll get you entered into the draw. Good luck in the giveaways, but now let's go ahead and draw the winners for last week's giveaways. And the giveaways we had for last week were for villagers of the Oak Dell, and this one was actually run over on the Discord, which should be drawn very, very soon. So if you did enter that, make sure to check your notifications. But then the other ones were Deluxe Board Game Train Set, which offers a bunch of deluxified trains that you can include in any of your train games, Fall of Lumen, The Witcher, and Ezra and Nehemiah. And we'll just draw these in order. So this one's going to be drawn on the Discord, so let's just skip that one. And let's go ahead and draw for the Deluxe Board Game Train Sets. In a draw winner, I use this application here that draws from the comments, and all these extra names down here are bonus entries for my Patreon subscribers. If you like this sort of content and you want to help support the channel, I really do appreciate it. It really does make a massive difference for me, especially right now. You can find a link to the Patreon in the description below, but you can also just like and subscribe and share these videos, and that also helps in a massive way to get more exposure to these videos and hopefully in front of other people that might find this content useful. Let's go ahead and draw those comments and draw a winner. And the winner is Alan Olmanson, and this is one of our Patreon subscribers. So congratulations, Alan. I'll reach out to you and let you know that you won yourself a pretty slick pledge for the Extraordinary Trains. And the next giveaway we'll draw for is for Fall of Lumen. So let's update that. Draw those comments. And draw a winner. There are a ton of comments on this video. And the winner of Fall of Lumen is Yvette Rodriguez, which is another one of our Patreon subscribers. So congratulations, Yvette. I'll reach out to you and let you know that you won yourself a pledge for Fall of Lumen. Now let's draw for The Witcher. So let's update this. Draw those comments and draw a winner. And the winner of The Witcher is Ryan Michael, who is also from the Patreon. And something that's cool here is I don't think any of these names have ever been drawn before. So these are all first-time winners from the Patreon. So congratulations to all of you. And these are all really nice giveaways. So a really nice first win here. And the last giveaway we have to draw is for Ezra and Nehemiah, which we will actually be drawing comments from a different channel, because I did want to give a quick shout out to Joel over at Drive-Thru Games. He's been doing fantastic work over on his channel for years, and it's been super helpful for me both personally and for providing coverage on the channel, so I did want to give him some credit. And he did reach out and he was super appreciative of all the comments that everyone left, and also a little confused, but that is always part of the fun. So let's go ahead and grab those comments and draw a winner. Matthew Justice, which is one of the comments from the video, and if you are wondering why that drew so obnoxiously fast, it's because I was messing around with some of the theme and animation settings here and I forgot to reset them. But Matthew, if you could just email me at adam@shelfclutter.com, we'll get that pledge all sorted out for you. But I just want to thank everyone for entering in these giveaways, leaving comments, and just getting involved in the channel. I do read all the comments. I don't respond to all of them because there's just so many and it's basically impossible for me to do that, but I do try to respond to as many as I can. And if you do leave a question, I do generally try to answer those questions. I just don't want anyone to feel like they're putting all this effort into leaving a comment and then think that they're not being read, because it's definitely not the case. I do read all of them, and a lot of them make me laugh, a lot of them make my day, and a lot of them give me encouragement. And I know that leaving a comment does take extra time and effort, so I just want to do the best that I can. But as always, thanks so much for watching, and if you do have Halloween plans, feel free to let us know what you're planning to dress up as. And until next time, keep that shelf cluttered and the table full.